Let's start with the Rockets right now, whose backs are against the wall in a must-win Game 7 tonight against the Thunder. Ooh. James Harden and Russell Westbrook had huge turnovers in Game 6 that helped OKC tie up the series. Rockets stars don't fare very well in elimination games. Harden, 8-10 in his career. Westbrook, only 4-8. So Acho with the dirty tie bar. Whose legacy is more on the line tonight? Harden, Westbrook.
Marcellus, this is one of the easiest questions you've ever asked me since I've been on the show. Of course, it's easily James Harden. Think about this, and I had to think about this myself. Y'all think about this at home.
You got to think about something easy?
Sometimes. Okay. When you think about Shaquille O'Neal, played for several teams, but Shaquille O'Neal's a Los Angeles Laker. Allen Iverson played for a few teams, but Allen Iverson, he's a 76er.
Yes.
When you go through the line and you say Tony Parker, he played for a couple teams, but Tony Parker, he is a Spur. James Harden, he is a Rocket. Russell Westbrook, though he's on the Rockets, Russell, when you think about his legacy, you're going to say, you know what?
I like this.
Westbrook played for the Thunder. He may have had a stint, a little speed bump, but he played for the Thunder. If the Rockets lose Game 7, it falls on the back of James Harden because James Harden is forever a Rocket. To whom much is given, much is required. Harden has been given the wheels of this team. You think of Paul George. Yeah, he had a brief 2 years with the Thunder, but you're never going to say, oh, yeah, man, PG. Yeah, he played. No, that's not what you're going to say because that's not where his legacy lies. James Harden's legacy lies with this Rockets team. And so the success of the Rockets, it goes to James Harden. The failures of the Rockets, it falls on James Harden. Think about it. James Harden, he's played in 13 playoff series with the Rockets, but he's lost 8 of them. Lost more playoff series than he has won with this team. So when I think about James Harden, he already has a few too many notches on his belt. But Marcellus, let's dive a little deeper because that's what we do on this show.
Layers.
The layers. James Harden, one of the best scorers of this generation. That's what we say when we talk about Harden. But you don't play. It's not the game of scorers. It's the game of basketball. And so I don't care about what James Harden has done as far as scoring. What has he done as far as winning?
Impact.
So again, his impact just hasn't been large enough. So again, if they lose this one, to me, it's going to fall more on the legacy of James Harden.
You said the word legacy. And as humans do, they want to take something and make it their own, showing their God complex and not purely defining what legacy is, which is a gift that especially is money or personal property. It's supposed to be a thing, but you know what it has turned into? Just reputation. Legacy has now morphed its way into reputation, what others think of you. So now we're going to get into a conversation. What do we think of Harden or what do we think of Westbrook if things don't go well tonight? You know damn well the more polarizing of these two is Russell Westbrook. The one that they're going to condemn the most is Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has been condemned before. He had his grace period after Durant dipped on him, and everyone was saying, oh, you're a sympathetic figure, Russell Westbrook. And then he started going out there every single night, every single year, getting triple-doubles. And you know what they did immediately? Oh, triple-doubles are kind of easy to get now. They minimize the triple-double just because of how polarizing Russell Westbrook is. But when you look at James Harden, he's sitting there in Houston, and we know maybe the most lethal scorer we've seen in the NBA, certainly top 5 ever in terms of ball in hand, ball in bucket, James Harden. And all he did was say, I need some help. And then they said, okay, we're going to send you a lifeline. And they sent him a lifeline to CP3. And he had the inopportune injury to his hamstring at a time when they were really going to do something, maybe even advance past Golden State. So then they ship CP3 out of town because they say, oh, man, you're 35, you're older, and you're injured at the wrong times. So let's bring in another lifeline, Russell Westbrook, who's younger and durable. And then what does Russell Westbrook do at the worst time ever? Get injured and then comes back and looks a mess. Playing poorly, not playing bad, playing poorly. So when this all goes down the line, the way that you're supposed to define it is by actual production. By playoff numbers, Harden is having his best playoff series ever. But we're not going to respect that if we listen to Acho. You have to listen to the numbers, and the numbers say it's going to be on Westbrook.
The problem I have with your argument, Marcellus, is the numbers, these numbers you're talking about, they're meaningless. Let me tell you why. Great. I'm glad you asked how, because I had to ask myself the same question. The last time, Marcellus, that a NBA scoring champion, so the person who led the league in scoring that year, won a title, 1999 Shaquille O'Neal.
Okay.
So what does that mean? What does that mean to you, the viewer? What does that mean to me? What should that mean to Daryl Morey? What should that mean to the Rockets? What that should mean is, even if James Harden does what we love in this world, selfish gratification, oh my God, he filled up the box score. James Harden, did you see he dropped 50? Oh my God, he's averaging 37 over the last 5 games. What that means is that has no indication on success for the team. In fact, being a scoring champion is an indicator that you're not going to win the ship in recent history. Marcellus, what I'm saying is James Harden's legacy is going to be it's going to have such a negative implication if he doesn't win this one again. One of my favorite players early 2000s, Tracy McGrady, baby.
Okay.
T-Mac.
The Mac.
I had his shoes, man. I had the T-Macs, them all-black joints. Wait, you know he was Adidas. He had them 3 stripes. I had his shoes. Nah, I rock with him. Okay. I was a kid at the time. Sure. You know me. I had his shoes. But T-Mac, when you think about him, what did he ever accomplish? He had 2 scoring titles. James Harden, he's going on his 3rd scoring title. T-Mac never got out of the first round. Yeah, he was one of the greatest scorers of the early 2000s, one of the greatest scorers of the last 20 years. But when we think about T-Mac, we don't really think about T-Mac now, do we? We don't.
We don't? I think about the Hall of Famer. I don't know about you.
But let me ask you this, Marcellus. It's very simple. How many scoring titles does Jordan have? You got to think about it, right? He has 10. But how many chips does Jordan have? He has 6, because that is his legacy. So if the Rockets lose, Harden's legacy will be nothing but a bunch of scoring titles that nobody will remember.
Great to give me simple numbers, and great to take the conversation from 2 guys. Neither one has a championship ring, right? So now we're going to level the playing field, and which one is going to take the brunt of all this criticism? It's going to be obviously Russell Westbrook. But let's bring in somebody to settle this tie in Slick Ric Bucher. Whose legacy is more on the line, Slick Rick, Harden or Westbrook?
I initially thought that this was a great question because it was so debatable between the two. And then I thought about it a little bit more, and I thought, you know what, it's not a very good question because it's very apparent that it's James Harden that has the legacy on the line here. Because it is essentially, Marcellus, you are accusing Russell Westbrook of throwing a terrible party when he didn't make the invitation list. And in order to be able, look, they didn't just trade for Westbrook. Harden wanted that trade. He wanted Chris Paul out. They did not get along. And he thought, you know, my old running buddy in Oklahoma City, he would be a better fit. We're going to get this done. Acho is right in saying that this is Harden's party. Houston is his team. This is his show, but it goes a little bit farther than that because of the type of show it is. Yes, 3-time scoring champ running. Last 3 scoring titles are his. But he's done it, and he's done it in a way with Mike D'Antoni, whose legacy is also on the line here, in a way that we've all said, is that really going to work? Can you really win a championship playing that kind of ball-dominant ISO ball? And James Harden, time and time again, has said, yes, watch me do it. And time again, we get to the postseason. He has a great regular season, wins another scoring title, is an all-star again. And then we get to the playoffs, and we get deeper in the playoffs, and we get deeper into a series, and suddenly James Harden can't deliver the goods in the 4th quarter when it matters most. So the idea that James Harden can win the way James Harden has made himself a star is on the line. And right now we're seeing it fail. And if he doesn't get out of this round, if the Rockets don't get out of this round, it is going to be squarely on James Harden and the system that he says can get it done.
Man, all I heard was that James Harden's a bad GM, and that's speculation at most. Look, he doesn't pull the strings. He suggests strongly what he desires, but there still is a Daryl Morey, if he still exists after China. He's still out there, and he's the one that's supposed to make these moves. Look, James Harden is shooting 64% in his true shooting percentage right now. 29.7 PER, because y'all want to give me simple numbers, and I'm going to give you complex numbers to show how great he's performing. But let's break this down why Westbrook is going to take the L in this situation. One, Westbrook has already played with Kevin Durant and James Harden before. How that turn out? And then Durant dips, and not only dips, but goes and wins. So then that falls squarely on Westbrook, like, how come y'all couldn't win if he could go somewhere else and win? I'm not saying if it's right. I'm just saying what's going to occur. And then now he goes back to his old running mate, say, oh, KD left me, Harden, but I'm going to come to you. And he comes to Houston. And they're looking good this year, not tremendous this year. You're looking at a 4 seed. And then all of a sudden, when they need him most, and they ship CP3 out of town for what reason? Because he was getting old and he wasn't as durable. Westbrook shows that he's not going to be durable in the most needed moment. And then when he returns, and D'Antoni said in his return, he looks fresh. I'm glad he had a few days, few weeks off. He looks better. He's played poorly. This is all going to land on Westbrook.
Marcellus, you're answering a different question.
What?
Marcellus, if the question was who is more at fault for the Rockets losing this series in the event they lose, I'm with you. It's Russell Westbrook. I'm with you. I saw the end of last game. Anybody who has a pair of eyes.
Oh, you didn't see the game before?
Anybody that got it. Well, the game, I saw the fact that he didn't play early on. Then he came back, was supposed to be healthy and underperformed, underdelivered. So I'm with you on that if you want to say who's more at fault. But the second you bring up the word legacy, Marcellus, that has to do with how will one be remembered.
That's not the definition, but that's what we're going to say.
But that has to do with how will one be remembered. That has to do with when I think back upon the greatness or the lack thereof of a person, what are the implications? The Rockets are James Harden's team. So a loss to the Rockets hurts James Harden more than it will ever hurt Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is just a passer-buyer. He's here today, and he may be gone tomorrow, pending on how this works out, how this plays out. I see Russell Westbrook in Houston the same way we might see Paul George in Oklahoma City. That might just be a blimp on the radar. But James Harden is forever going to be remembered with the Rockets.
Right now,
if them cats
I'm going to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
What team do you remember Kevin Durant with?
Where he won them chips, too, though.
Oh, really? He's not a Thunder? He's not the Thunder?
Because first off, he was a Sonic, and then the Thunder, and then he won them chips.
I don't
You're
want
asking
Wikipedia
me something more convoluted, sir. You're asking me a more convoluted question.
It's convoluted because it's not an easy answer.
It's convoluted.
Move on to Slick.
We ain't moving on,
That's why
Slick.
I'm doing this.
We ain't moving on. It's convoluted. It's convoluted because Russ played 11 seasons for OKC.
I'm talking
He's
Kevin
played
Durant.
One? Now,
Yeah.
Go ahead now, Slick. Marcellus asking these convoluted, twisted
I
questions.
just asked a simple question based on what you were saying.
Marcellus, you said at the very beginning, Russell Westbrook is injured. He's coming back from injury. How can we possibly have a referendum on what he has done in this series when he's clearly not the same? The other part for me is, with Westbrook, there is no legacy to be determined at this point. We know who Westbrook is. He is a tremendous individual player who has struggled to be able to combine his own individual talent with being a player who gets the most out of those around him. He had a chance to do it with KD. He had a chance to do it with Paul George. And then he came to Houston, and now he's trying to build himself around James Harden. But there's a Batman and there's a Robin. And in the same way that if the Lakers fail to win a championship, are we going to look at Anthony Davis and say, well, you just weren't up to the task? Are we going to say ultimately LeBron James didn't win that championship? That's the way it's going to stand. If the Clippers don't win a championship, are we going to say, you know what, Paul George just didn't do enough? No, we're going to look at Kawhi Leonard and say his experiment going from Toronto to the Clippers did not work. And the last game, game 2, taking game 6, taking it off of James Harden's plate. I didn't see James Harden wanting the ball at the end of that game. I haven't seen James Harden be aggressive at the end of games multiple times when it was winning time. I understand he's fatigued, but if you are that guy, then you can't carry it for 3.5 quarters. You've got to deliver at the end.
Let me get something.
James didn't, and ultimately that's why they lost. And that's why if they don't get out of this round, it sits on Harden.
Marcellus, I got a question for you because Slick just made me a little bit smarter, and I like to think of myself as a smart individual.
It ain't hard.
So sit up straight, Marcellus, and let me ask you this question: Who would you say is the better player, Russell Westbrook or James Harden?
James Harden.
James Harden is a better player. To Slick's point, the brunt of the damage, the brunt of the legacy damage, it falls on the person who is the better player. Like Slick just alluded to, if the Lakers are to lose, it's not going to be AD's fault. It's going to be Bron's fault. Clippers are going to lose. It's not going to be PG's fault, Kawhi's fault. Going back to LeBron when he was with the Heat, if them Cats was going to lose, it wasn't going to be Chris Bosh's fault. It wasn't even going to be D. Wade's fault. It was going to be LeBron's fault because the legacy damage, it falls on the shoulders of the person who is the better player. You, sir, just said yourself, James Harden, the better player. Accept defeat, Marcellus. That's what you need to do.
Dude,
accept defeat.
You sound like my wife. No, I'm not. That's why we have a great marriage. I'm not going to bed till I win, even if I lose. Here's the thing. I hate to do this to you because it's good to see you in the dictionary now after you already messed up the word and definition of legacy and made it your own. Now you want to go into the dictionary. So now I'm going to jump out the dictionary and into the basketball mindset. You bring up Slick Rick, LeBron, and AD, and then you bring up Kawhi and Paul George, and then you guys want to conflate that into a conversation of Batman and Robin and take it to say that that's the same as when we're talking about James Harden and Russell Westbrook. I'm going to ask you, in a LeBron AD conversation, Kawhi and Paul George conversation, any other MVPs in that conversation? LeBron is. Kawhi is. Is AD an MVP? No. Even a finals MVP? No. Is Kawhi MVP? No, but a two-time finals MVP. Here's my summary.
What's your summary? Because I'm confused.
Yeah, you damn well know Westbrook's MVP is
James Harden MVP?
Unusual circumstances. Triple doubles on a team that wasn't near the top seat.
There's one answer to this. Is James Harden MVP? Is Russell Westbrook an MVP? So y'all keep going out there saying Batman and Robin when really it's maybe 1A, 1B, even though I think Harden is better. These are two guys who have full legacies on the line because these are two former MVPs that were supposed to combine forces. James Harden is playing at an all-time playoff level for himself. Russell Westbrook has been MIA or playing poorly when in that same moment. How in the hell is he not going to take criticism when he doesn't show up when they need him most?